He is my co-host on Fox and Friends Weekend. He is my co-host on Off the Wall, Off the Grid, and this segment here on The Will Cain Show, Off the Rail. He's Pete Hegseth. What's up, Pete? You on spring break? You're busy with the kids? You're working the land?
Yes. So I have kids on spring break, right? We got a blended family. So some are in school, some are out right now. I got my 3 boys, and I'm trying to raise them to... First of all, clearing the land is so satisfying, Will. Clearing brush is really, George W. Bush was right. It's extremely satisfying. You know that. Now, for a 13-year-old, 10-year-old, and 8-year-old, they think it's torture. But what they've begun to realize after 3 days of 2-hour sessions, and this is only 2-hour sessions, Will. This is not like an 8-hour day. You know, I could work them that way. Instead, I'm just doing 2 hours a day. I mean, just griping on day 1, pretty inefficient on day 2. Today, they weren't in any better mood or attitude, but they worked and they wanted to get it done, and we got it done. And I'm telling you, the amount of land that we have cleared and manual labor, I'm talking machetes, axes. Yeah, I got a chainsaw in there doing some stuff, but it's big stuff, small stuff, green stuff, old stuff, ripping it out. And that's I figured it out. Why am I going bowling with the kids? Why am I, just playing basketball one-on-one? Why am I not taking the time in spring break to work them? Like, this is their satisfaction in work. They've started to want to work early in the day so that it can be over and so they can be done with it and get it out of the way. That's the whole point. So I'm loving it. They're not, but it's the best.
So we're going to get to, in just a moment, the fact that Tony Bobulinski has been testifying this morning before Congress and the effect that could have on the long-term investigation into the Biden crime family. But on working the land, I just got done with the first of my physical challenges for 2024. I just got done with a rowing competition, 5,000 meters on a Concept 2 rower. I'll update you a little bit later in the Will Cain Show on my performance. But rowing is... it's difficult exercise. It's lower back, it's legs. And I've done things throughout my life athletically that have challenged me physically. But the most challenging thing I've ever done physically, I would say, where I laid in bed at the end of the day, really feeling incapable of movement, was the year I spent working on a ranch in Montana. And we did different jobs. I packed mules into the mountains. I played cowboy. I stretched barbed wire. I dug fence post holes. But the hardest thing I ever did was bucking bales of hay. So when you hay a field, we would make like 80-pound square bales, not the huge, gigantic round bales you see when you drive along the highway, but just 80-pound or so square bales, and then you stack it in the barn for winter. But you have to get it from the field on the ground into a trailer, and then you got to get it off the trailer into the barn. And for us, pretty small operation, that meant manual labor. That's picking them up by the strings, by the baling wire, lifting it into the trailer, stacking it on top of one another onto the trailer, then doing the opposite to get it back into the barn. And man, Hegseth, lower back, and this is when I was 25, lower back, but not just all the normal, like blue-collar manual labor muscles, the ones you don't realize that are a part of your body, ones. Like my fingers, like grabbing those wires. You wore gloves, but still, like the muscles in your hands and your fingers. I laid in bed at night, man, and I couldn't uncurl my hands.
That's the best feeling in the world. And we're sitting here telling stories about that, right? Not about like when you sat and watched TV or played video games. That's why I play cowboy, Will. I figured you would appreciate this. That's why I play. And my dad was out there yesterday. He's 70. He was wearing a hat, and he goes, "Son, I've never worn a cowboy hat, but it works when you're clearing brush because it keeps the branches out of your head. It's got a lot of functions, and it does. And I wore it all day, and it's delightful." And you're right. Every muscle in my body hurts. They've been sleeping in because they're exhausted. And they're going to tell stories about that week that they had to clear brush with their dad, something they didn't want to do all the way along the driveway to clear it out, when they would never have told stories about how much Madden they played. And that's kind of what I'm going for,
Few more quick points before we move on to Bobulinski. I would normally never endorse a chocolate-colored cowboy hat like you just auditioned here for the show, but I do notice you've got a nice layer of, I don't know if that's wood dust or hay on the top. So
Yep.
You've
I
been
mean, I just
putting
came
it
out of the
to
came out of
work.
the field 14 minutes ago. So I'm sweaty, I'm stinky.
Well,
it's great.
I love the story angle of what you're talking about as well. One of my very, very good friends in life, sometimes on vacation, or all the times on vacation, I make my boys work out. Like, I get them up and, they fashion themselves with ambitions in soccer. So, like, I get them up 7 a.m., 7:30, not the crack of dawn. And I'd make them go to the beach. Yep. And I'd make them, do frog jumps and tuck jumps and stuff in the sand on the beach. It's great for you. And my friend said, look, the thing is, when they're in their 20s and they're sitting around having a beer together with their friends, these are the stories they're going to tell. Can you believe Dad made us do this? To your point, not that amazing game they had on FIFA or Madden.
Totally. And the griping. And so character development, you and I both talk about all the time on the show. We have no idea. There's no manual for being a father. I just know that, like, hard work is good and building memories is important. And we have this whole playground outdoors. Let's make the use of it and sweat while we do it. It's cool.
Totally jealous of the Hegseth Ranch. Let's move to the news of the day, the news of the moment, and that is Tony Bobulinski, former business associate of Hunter Biden, is testifying before Congress. So far today, he came out of the gates with guns blazing, accused Joe Biden's brother Jim Biden and Hunter Biden of both perjuring themselves in front of Congress. There was a statement by James Comer, the Republican congressman leading up the Oversight Committee, that I thought was fascinating, Pete. He said, he asked this question, which I think is a fascinating question for anyone listening or watching to ask themselves. Outside of when Joe Biden has been in government, and including his family, what do the Bidens do for a living? Answer that question. Explain that to someone. How do they make money? What do they do for a living? He said the Bidens do not work in any traditional sense of the word. They do not work as consultants or lawyers or advisors. The Bidens don't sell a product or a service or a set of skills. The Bidens sell Joe Biden. The scam is simple. The Biden family promises they can make foreign partners' problems go away by engaging the U.S. government. Pete.
You're correct. Their family business is influence peddling. But your sort of opening question was, will this Tony Bobulinski testimony be a final crack in the dam? Or actually, the answer to that is no. The answer to that is definitively no. The answer is, so far, none of this has mattered. And I was fiddling with my remote while you were talking because I'm, on YouTube TV, you can watch all the different channels, and I've kind of been watching throughout. They're not covering it. The mainstream press is dismissing this. Hunter Biden is not there. Tony Bobulinski is someone they've already disregarded, even though he's exceedingly credible. So one of them's talking about Texas immigration law, and the other one's talking about 2022 and Arizona and votes. Like, they're not covering it. So he's credible. James Comer is right. Every step of the way, they've tried to uncover the influence peddling, the criminal influence peddling that is the Biden name. Evidence has been shown. The mainstream press doesn't care, and they won't care. And they actually think they're winning on the impeachment front when it comes to Joe Biden. You saw Biden's lawyers write that letter to Comer and others saying, stop, it's over. You're not, there's nothing to see here with Joe and the family. So they think they have what Jim Biden said from the beginning, what Tony Bobulinski said from the beginning, which is plausible deniability. And they have said, I don't know, and we can't remember, and I was on drugs, and all of that has been used to explain away what is quite obviously a political criminal syndicate, but they're going to get away with it, I think, at least up until the election.
And you're right. What it feels like has happened to this story is similar to what the left accuses the Donald Trump lawfare strategy of having been, which is to run out the clock, to drag it out past an election. But there's also another sort of finish line in dragging something out, and that is the loss of public attention. And this feels like the story has moved into the incremental stage. And for the casual viewer or listener, you and I have talked about this, even for someone who's not a casual listener or viewer, someone who even covers the news, there are certain stories that reach a point where it's hard to keep up with every little incremental development. And
Yep.
For me, that was the case with the war in Afghanistan. It was hard over the years to keep up with everything that happened or wasn't happening. in Afghanistan. And quite honestly, it's hard for the casual viewer to understand the ins and the outs and the incremental changes in the war in Israel. And this has sort of reached that moment where it's like the ball, if at all, it's getting advanced, is getting advanced in incremental ways that are imperceptible to the casual news listener.
I think that's an important point. It's just like Russian collusion. Remember when that was being unraveled and we were starting to get a sense of what was being done behind the scenes? The left just started to just say, man, the right's talking about the fact this isn't true, but we know Trump's a Russian agent. And so the narrative started to get sort of baked in, even though 3 years later, everybody knows it was all bunk. I think this could move in the other direction where even though they're making incremental progress, to your point, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, it isn't enough to change the baked-in perception that most people have of, sure, the Bidens were kind of shady, but, they're better than Trump. And so they made a few bucks, and Hunter, we feel bad for him. And so let's let it happen at the ballot box. I salute the attempts of the House Republicans. I think they should continue, but I don't know that it changes anyone's perception of the Bidens at this point, unless they find something so staggering the mainstream press has to admit it. And that's what Bob Alinsky's testimony should be, frankly, but it hasn't been received that way.
I would ask anybody listening or watching to try that question that I ask out to anyone who seems uninterested in this story. Joe Biden and Jim Biden and Hunter Biden all live lifestyles and have net worth seemingly in the millions. And just answer one simple question. What do they do for a living? What is their business? All right, let's move to this. Pete Hegseth. Last night at dinner with my two sons, we had a fun family dinner. Those kind of spring up out of nowhere where the conversation just flows and you get to know your kids and you get to know your wife. My youngest son, who is 12, was talking about my older son who has had a long-term girlfriend. And he was preparing unnecessarily for life. He was like, so are you going to marry her? And will she get along with my potential wife? And, I didn't think about wives at all at 12, much less 16. And he said, my youngest son said, well, you guys have to tell me if whoever I am with doesn't vibe with the family, if you guys don't like her, you have to tell me. And I said, which I appreciated. I love that he was placing family and the potential for us to all hang out together in the future at such a high priority. But I said to him, hey, West, no one's going to tell you, man. Not us, not your buddies. It doesn't matter how many red flags are out there, unless it's just a complete toxic relationship where you're like fighting in front of others. You're the batting average of your friends or family that try to tell you might be making a mistake is below the Mendoza line. Like it is, you bat maybe 150. And what happens is you actually lose the relationship with your friend or your family member. You don't break up the bad relationship. So as a result, no one tells you. They may try to drop a hint, but no one tells you you're making a mistake in marriage.
Your assessment is correct. What happens between West and that is also puberty and emotions and investment, and I'm in love and no one else has been as in love as I am. And this is something people do not understand, the depth of this relationship. We've all been there. It clouds all of the judgment. She's the best thing ever, and this is the purest and most amazing thing that will stay true forever. And if you walked in the middle of that, you don't understand. It's all coming. And I don't have any kid that's at that place yet. So those are kind of fun future conversations to think about having. But yeah, I think I've tried a couple of times to hint that or to have that direct conversation. And you're right. It's only gone completely sideways. I'd like to think, though, Will, to his point, that with my own kids, I will be that blunt. We'll see. But if there's one of them absolutely sideways with just there's 2 or 3 categories that are no-go land, then I will intervene. I don't know if that'll go well.
There's sort of a viral conversation going around, Pete, right now, what the right age for a man is. And there's no right age, but the ideal age, the optimum age to commit is like when are you ready for, you could do this 2 ways. Like, is it, 25? Is it 28? Is it 6 months into a relationship? Is it 1 year into a relationship? Like, when is it time to go ahead and commit or get off the pot?
I have not been privy to that debate. I think I obviously wasn't ready to. I obviously thought I was more ready to commit than I was. I think I don't mean to get serious on you, but this is one of the things I think about a lot with my own kids and their own Christian faith, and the seriousness and fidelity with which I want them to take their future partner and view their responsibility and obligation to them, which I think is something that eroded quickly for a long time and then led to a lot of people feeling love, and then love feelings are very fleeting, and then things don't go the way that they should. And so I do think having a deeply baked in Christian ethos is really helpful if you want young men to commit earlier, which I think men should be willing to commit earlier. I think men waiting till they're 35 and finding themselves and then deciding to settle, if that's your thing, fine. I'm not here to criticize everybody. I just think society's healthier when younger people can find each other and build young, robust, strong families. So I'd like to think that's the case. But if you don't know yourself and you don't know those things and you're committing, then committing too soon is probably not a good thing. So I don't have a great answer. And as with most things, I broke every rule, and now I'm trying to reverse engineer it with my own kids by infusing them things that I want them to believe early as they possibly can.
You learn through failure. Back to the real quick on the telling someone that they're making a mistake debate. The thing is, like, I think we all have a little bit of experience in this. We have a friend or we have a family member, and I've seen it go bad, and it always goes bad for the friend or the family member that tries to help. But I do know guys on the other side of it. I do know guys who, they went through it, and then it, in retrospect, clearly was a mistake, and then they say things like, I wish you would have told me, or I wish you would have been more, adamant or more clear about the red flags. But the bottom line truth is, you wouldn't have heard me then. You just simply wouldn't have heard me. It would be like talking to a brick wall.
I think I'm agreeing with you, but I think with some friends, dropping certain things at certain times is maybe okay, as long as they're not daggers to his pride about, like, her looks or whatever it is. They've got to be something like, hey, you understand when she does this, that's a little bit of a sign. Be careful, be on the lookout. And again, with my kids, I'm going to test your theory, and I'll report back to you in 5 years or whatever it is. But I don't think like a teenage girlfriend is warning zone land. It's more like once they get older and they're thinking about who I want to marry, that's when you got to throw the red flags out there.
Oh, no. And then just to be clear, in case this makes it around to my personal circles, this is all abstract and hypothetical. My oldest son's girlfriend is wonderful. This is about marriage we're talking about. I love it.
We're in that land. What if the girlfriend's parents are watching the Will Kane show and are very offended? You're already having to tiptoe.
No.
I love it.
This is all a hypothetical about marriage. Okay, speaking of pride, let's move to this. Monday is the deadline for Donald Trump to meet a $450 million bond to the state of New York and Attorney General Letitia James. It's an incredible amount of money. And there has been some, like Congressman Ted Lieu, who said, Donald Trump claims to be worth billions. How can he not come up with $454 million? To that, many are like, why does every Democrat seem to not understand business? Even Mark Cuban said, hey, man, just because you're a billionaire doesn't mean you're liquid to the tune of $454 million. Kevin O'Leary, Pete, from Shark Tank, Mark Cuban's co-host, was on Outnumbered yesterday, and here's what he had to say about this judgment.
Yeah, I don't think it's a case about Trump at all anymore. I think people should be thinking about the policy being put in place here, the competitiveness of New York State versus other U.S. states, but more importantly, the message about the American brand. You think about America, the reason this is the number one economy on earth is that we have laws and we have due process and we have property rights. It attracts foreign capital from all around the world. All of that is being shaken to the core here.
So, Pete, obviously the implications are bigger than simply for Trump. The options seem to be as follows. He can raise money from supporters, which reports are he's not interested in doing that. He's not sort of interested in hat-in-hand donations. He can declare bankruptcy. That seems to be a point of personal pride that he never has personally declared bankruptcy, so that doesn't seem like a real option. He can do nothing, and the state of New York can take over properties. There's reports about 40 Wall Street being a building they could take over, but I don't think the state of New York wants to run one of his properties. And if they try to make a fire sale, and sell it, I mean, A, that's not done very quickly, and B, they would way undersell it. They would way undersell it. The options are really not very good for Donald Trump.
Yeah, this is actually Wade. I've actually thought about this a lot, and it's really bad. By the way, I don't agree with Kevin O'Leary. I like him a lot. This is not about the business environment. He said that in a lot of shows in a lot of different ways, which I respect the point. But this is about Donald Trump. Okay, Joe businessman is not going to get this treatment in New York City. Now, someone like Trump in the future, maybe I get the idea of an equal scales, and that is, but this is a Trump, economic assassination attempt that Letitia James is trying to make. She wants this man out of New York City, this man embarrassed, this man put in a place where he can't come up with the cash. All of that is true about a billionaire and liquid assets of property. There's no doubt about that. I think Trump should challenge this I don't know where this is, and the levels of challenge. What about the Eighth Amendment, sort of imposing excessive bail, excessive fines? I feel like he's got a damn good case there on the Eighth Amendment to say $500 million. What? Because I'm a flight. What's the bail here on that is excessive, and fight it in that direction. I don't know what he does. He's not going to ask supporters. You're exactly right. Although I've had people reach out to me over email elsewhere saying, how do I donate to Donald Trump, which is an amazing view of how people feel about this. He's been willing time and time again to go to the courtroom to say, hey, I'll go to court because I'm fighting on behalf of you. And that has resonated for him inside the primary and in his poll numbers. It's a whole nother thing to say, they're taking my assets and I'm doing that for you. They're taking Trump Tower. They're taking my golf course and they're fire sailing them at a tenth of their value. Like, this is a guy who's a businessman at his heart, who has pride in that business, who has sons who will take over that business and believes should live in a country where that's possible to do. This, to me, is going to get really gnarly. I don't know what it's going to look like. And the fact that you can't find an insurer willing to underwrite it because of the real estate portion of it, I don't know where it goes, but the left is going to love this. And they want to put a for sale sign on everything they can for Donald Trump if they can.
The insurer and the real estate has a lot to do, by the way, with the economic environment right now and the rate, the high interest
Correct.
rates. Like, people are just worried about commercial real estate. But a couple of points. So Trump will certainly go to the courtroom. He will appeal. He may make an Eighth Amendment argument. He certainly, I think, has a good chance of winning, at least at the time it gets to the Supreme Court. But that takes time, and he has to satisfy this bond before any of that can take place, which makes this so precarious come Monday. Come Monday, this has to be resolved because the state of New York is not bending. And I will say this.
Why would they? Why would they? Why would they bend? They got their guy in the crosshairs in their mind.
And you're right. Both you and Kevin O'Leary are right. Okay, so here's the thing. O'Leary is right in that Trump is a little bit of the glass breaker. So, famously Donald Trump said, they're not after me, they're after you. I'm just standing in the way. And to some extent, that's true. So what has been done against Trump has been done against people who fall outside the bounds of acceptable groupthink or ideology. On much more minor levels, like, free speech on social media as dictated by the government. That's been argued this week, by the way, in front of the Supreme Court. More on that coming up on the Will Cain Show. The lack of due process for people involved in January 6th. There's a lot of ways in which, this whole system of lawfare has been used against the little guy and not just Donald Trump. And it's not hard to envision a future in New York where if you have the wrong politics, the wrong advocacy, you fall outside of acceptable ideology and groupthink, that you could also suffer economically through real estate or lawfare in the same way that's been done with Donald Trump. It requires a leap, but I don't think it's a huge leap. But you're also right that this is a personal vendetta, all of it, against one man. And she said when she ran that she would go after Donald Trump. So, yes, it is about Donald Trump, but it's not a great leap to think it could soon be more than Donald Trump and about America. Last thing I'd say on this bond, let's say he does nothing. Okay, he does nothing, and that allows the state of New York to take a building, whatever that building may be, 40 Wall Street, Trump Tower. Okay, then they've got to do something with that building. and they need to satisfy their money. So do they sell it? What do they do? I think there is, and who knows what the value of public relations is at that point. That's ugly. Like you just described, taking someone's property like that, fire selling it for a tenth of the value. I'm telling you once again, not everything is politics. That's serious hickey on his personal net worth and so forth. But that's ugly, ugly politics. It gets really obvious in even more obvious ways to the casual American.
You're exactly right. It's really ugly. It could be like a Mar-a-Lago raid type moment on steroids, not just amongst the Republican base, but amongst people that say, really? But at what point does helping him in the polls, I mean, that trade-off becomes impossible. And I think he fights it more based on what his viable business interests are in the future vis-a-vis, is this going to, I mean, we're now talking about his own personal wealth. This is a personal thing. I mean, he'll do everything he can to fight it. There's no doubt. But if it comes to that, I don't think we know what that looks like. Can you imagine, like, Letitia James is showing up at Trump Tower saying, this is ours now, get all your stuff out? A former president, uncharted, no idea.
All right, another dinner time conversation last night where you came up, Pete Hegseth. Yesterday here on the Will Cain Show, Jesse Waters was on, and he laid out some of his rules for men. We'll do more of that a little bit later on the Will Cain Show with your interaction from viewers. He's got a lot of rules for men. You have said to me on numerous occasions, a man should not wave. I think your specific rule is a man should not wave on television. I don't know if it extends to a man should not wave. So last night at the dinner table, we really broke this down, Pete. The kids and the wife were like, yeah, Will, you do kind of do this on TV sometimes. And yeah, it's a little effeminate. So then we started breaking it down. Okay, well, but does this mean you never wave? I mean, the wife said, Will, you do this sometimes. And I'm like, is that bad? Is that worse or is that better? What I'm doing for those listening on podcast format is I'm doing the whole closed finger clasp thing, bending them down. And then there was a debate. No, you can, but dudes do things because they inherently know that waving is a little effeminate. Like they do things like just raise their hand, be like, hey, sup? And then I've got my hand in the air and you don't move the hand. You don't do the twists or the turns in the hand. You just hold it up. Or guys do 2 fingers up or 1 finger up, like, sup? As they raise their hand like that. So what are the rules for waving?
So I will first say, as you went through this long explanation, I realized how foolish it is that hand waving is somehow my Alamo of personal pride, considering all the things we do on Fox and Friends, right? Like we do all these things that are meant to degrade us and make us look foolish and ridiculous. But my stand my ground moment is waving on the show. I guess I watched over the years on the show, I've watched so many masculine men in the green room or in teases, the camera gets on them and they don't know what else to do. And so they do the wave. I'm not even going to do it on your show because I don't wave, but they do a wave and they are like, dude, that dude should not be waving. That was a Navy SEAL that killed a lot of guys. He should not be waving. That looks bad. But
and now there's a camera in his face, so he's going like this.
Yeah, don't do. Give a thumbs up, give a salute. You can give a point, whatever you want. A little fit. I don't care. Just don't wave. I believe that you can wave to little kids. Okay, it's nice to give a little. I like to, a sweet little girl or a little boy. You wave to him, like Margarita in the green room. Little wave, cute. Maybe my wife comes on set, cute. But otherwise, I don't really waving someone down. Like I can see that has a function.
What if you see somebody across the stadium or across the bleachers at a game, another dad, and you kind of hey, what's up? What do you do?
Yeah.
I think I do the stationary hand raise.
That's very different than your wave, which is that you can't do.
Howdy doody.
Howdy doody.
A little howdy doody at shoulder level, back and forth.
Anymore, but every once in a while I catch it. It's just a small TV rule. Don't wave. Not good for men.
You know who I like? Hawaii has this figured out. I think the shaka, the hang loose, is a great little greeting. It's a great little, hey, what's up? But there's nuances to it. Okay, pinky finger, thumb out. But if you're in Hawaii a lot, you'll notice local guys, it's very casual. Meaning you don't like overextend it. You don't like really get the fingers out there. It becomes a real like, oh, he's doing it. It's you can almost barely see it from the fist, and you certainly don't, give it a, the cartoonish twist of the wrist. You just do a little bit of, like one hook. You just do like a little like a fish hook. You just go whack, or you do nothing. You just hold it out. I think Hawaii's got it. Every state should have a hand greeting. I love that.
I like that. I think I do this the most. What's up? How's it
Peace?
going? Yeah.
You do peace?
I do that. Mm-hmm.
I don't do peace.
I do
don't
peace.
know. I don't like that.
I don't like peace
I think
generally, but I do peace. Yes.
It's such a terrible thing to say. Everybody likes peace.
Okay, fine. I like
Not
peace.
Pete. I like war. How's water going, by the way? Hegseth,
great.
by the way, has been fighting a headache.
I even allowed
He's
my
been
kids
fighting
to
a
have a water bottle.
headache for 2 months.
I even allowed my kids to each have one water bottle while doing work. Hydration is the key, Will, and you said it, and you were right. And I took away nicotine, I took away caffeine, I took away everything else, and
alcohol.
It didn't change until I added a lot of liquid, and then the dull headache went away, and it's a beautiful thing. It's hydration.
I've been on the water now. I advised you, but I, like most things in life, I'm all talk. I wasn't really drinking a lot of water. And so then, like I told you, hey, man, you need to drink water. And so I started drinking water. And I chug, like I wake up before I have coffee, I chug a glass of water. I have my coffee, I have my breakfast, I have a Zen. Then I chug another a glass of water. And I'm trying to I'd say I'm probably getting a good 5 or 6, just cups, whatever those are, 16 ounces. And I don't drink them. See, here's my thing. I love ice water. Like love ice water. But I realize I'm always drinking ice water, and you don't really drink it. You sip ice water, and you only end up ever drinking half the cup. So now I'm just doing room temperature water, chugging it 4 or 5 times a day, in the bathroom a lot. Lot of bathroom trips now.
That's a big downside. Big downside.
I've evened the energy out. It's a more consistent energy.
The water has led to more energy? The water?
Yes, no doubt about it. No doubt about it.
I've just thought about it in the context of sleep. Sleep has been better. I feel better in the morning. I've seen my energy level stay stronger without caffeine, which I'm still not doing because my wife drinks decaf. And so it's an easy switch for me because she's already on it. And when I'm not going like this, with the energy level just stays straight the whole day. I don't know. I love it. Maybe if I add even, I'm falling behind on the water. I believe in you, but I'm not doing the 6 cups a day consistently like you. I'm grabbing a vitamin water more often than I otherwise would, or drinking water more often than I otherwise would, but I'm not in a regimen. I got to get on it.
All right. Next, there are rumors about Donald Trump's cabinet, Pete, who that could be. There are talk about Vivek. This is according to Fox News. It was on Fox and Friends. Vivek Ramaswamy, potentially DHS. Interesting names for Attorney General. Mike Lee, senator from Utah. Ted Cruz, senator from Texas. I think Ted Cruz, I think he would actually be a perfect Attorney General.
Oh, go. Inside that cabinet, go. Just pick up every hard-charging knife fighter, America first, uncompromising, principled, smart fighter, and just unleash them. Because in the first term, what you had was a political novice in Donald Trump, picking people that kind of looked the position, but their compass on his agenda was unclear. We know where people's compasses are now. He knows that. He wants that. And after what he's gone through, they're about to seize his building. Okay? Pick a Secretary of Education that's going to help abolish the Department of Education. Pick a, head of the DOJ who will actually, enforce the law we believe it should be enforced. Yes, so yes, all the way and amen. People don't vote based on the cabinet, but I think your energy level and your excitement amongst conservatives in the base is going to be galvanized by a clear set of this is where we're going to bat when we get a chance. So I was heartened to see those reports. It's wonderful. It's a little ahead of ourselves at this point. We're dealing with $454 million bond and other pending cases and the stuff we've already talked about. But it's motivating to think about what that could look like.
I agree with you. People don't vote on the cabinet. I will say, for any friends that are moderate conservatives or country club Republicans, I'm not saying that disparagingly, but this is something they bring up all the time. Like, who's he going to be surrounded with? What's the competency level of the people that will be executing the job? But I think you're right. We're ahead of ourselves. And in opposition to so many other things we talk about in the news, we'll see with this Tony Bobulinski testimony in front of Congress, this $454 million bond seems like a real thing that is coming towards a day of reckoning. And that's a story that feels like it has an inflection point that will command all of our attention within
big time,
just a couple of days.
By the way, kudos
I'm glad to break
you.
it down with you today.
You were all over the bloodbath thing, which has been such a stupid cycle of their attempt to impugn. So for people inside our show, it was Will in the 8:30 hour that was like, yo, we got to do this more because this is coming. And I'm seeing this all over Twitter. So we did it at the top of 9, and then it exploded for the next 48 hours. But good eye. And
they're still on it,
have that kind of
Hegseth.
eye on everything.
We do, and they're still on it. I was told that yesterday on, for example, the Today Show, which is, to me, the Today Show is the definition of the casual news viewer, right? They're still editing the clip and saying that he's calling for political violence, that he's calling for a bloodbath. It's still alive, this hoax. Mm-hmm. And so we will, as you point out, we will be vigilant. All right, Pete Hegseth, get back to work in the land, man. Thanks for doing Off the Rails.
Man, chocolate hat. Let's do it. See ya. Peace. Have a great show.
Go get it.